Isang batang babae ang bigla na lamang tumilapon sa ere matapos sumabog ang isang kanal sa China.
Silipin po natin ang kalagayan ng bata. Mula sa mga detalye ng balitang ibabahagi, maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Biyernes.
Isang Pilipino pulis kasama sa mga nasawi sa Washington air crash.
January inflation rate posibleng pumatak sa pagitan ng 2.5 hanggang 3.3% ayon sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
US authorities kinumpirmang walang nakaligtas sa Washington plane crash.
OpenAI inakusahan ng DeepSeek ng paggamit ng ChatGPT para sa mga trainings ng ibang AI models.
At EJ Obiena naiuwi ang silver medal sa indoor tournament sa Germany. Sinabi po ni Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla na kasama ang isang Filipino police colonel sa mga nasawi sa Washington air collision nitong Miyerkules.
Kinumpirma naman ni Philippine National Police spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Randolph Tuano sa isang press conference. Ayon kay Colonel Tuano, kinilala ang biktima bilang si PNP Chief of Supply Management Division Police Colonel Pergentino Malabed Jr. Tinukoy ng tagapagsalita na nasa isang official travel si Tuano para sa isang pre-delivery inspection ng higit sa 2,000 all-purpose vests. Samantala, nagpaabot naman ng pakikiramay ang PNP sa pamilya ng nasawing police official.
We extend our deepest condolences to his bereaved family, loved ones, and colleagues. The PNP is committed to providing them with all necessary support during this difficult time. As we grieve this tragic event, we also honor the dedication and sacrifice of Police Colonel Malabed. His contributions to the PNP and the nation will never be forgotten.
Sa kasalukuyan, inaalam naman ng mga US authorities kung bakit bumangga ang eroplano at isang Army helicopter sa isang Washington airport. Inaasahan na sa mga susunod na araw ay ilalabas na ng mga otoridad ang mga pangalan ng mga nasawi sa trahedya.
Plano ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas na i-upgrade ang 15 paliparan sa buong bansa sa ilalim po yan ng Aviation Infrastructure Program. Ayon kay Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr., naglaan ang gobyerno ng 7.7 billion pesos para sa modernization ng mga pasilidad ng mga paliparan sa bansa. Inaasahan ni PBBM na mula sa mga upgrades na ito ay mas mapapaunlad nito ang competitiveness ng mga paliparan para mag-cater ng mga bisita. Kabilang po dito ang bagong bukas na alternate runway sa Mactan, Cebu International Airport.
Plano ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. na makipagkita kay US President Donald Trump upang linawin ang tungkol sa pagtigil ng tulong ng Estados Unidos sa Pilipinas. Kahit daw anya mga ahensya ng gobyerno ng US ay hindi naintindihan kung aling aid fund ang tatamaan o babawasan. Marami rin anya silang dapat talakayin ni Trump at kabilang na nga rito ay ang tungkol sa trading, defense and security maging ang bagong immigration policy ng US.
Even the agencies in the US government, hindi nila naintindihan what it means. What will, ano yung tatamaan, saan yung babawasan ang aid fund. So, well, this is what happens. These are the growing pains of a new administration. But I'm sure that with time, these policies will crystallize and it will become clearer. But I will meet with President Trump because there's much that we need to discuss between the U.S. and the Philippines. in terms of the trade, in terms of defense and security, and now the new policy on immigration. Nagpauwi na yata ng 100 na Pilipino. So this is something that we have to work through and hopefully resolve, because the Filipinos in the United States especially have really formed a very important part already of their workforce. So we'll see how we can influence the policy making in terms of
Samantala, muling nagbabala ang Department of Health o DOH sa publiko sa palaging obserbahan ang precautions laban sa influenza-like illnesses ngayong malamig na panahon. Batay sa monitoring ng ahensya, nakapagtala sila ng 5,789 influenza-like cases as of January 18. Mas mababa po ito ng 54% kumpara sa naitala sa parehong panahon noong 2024 na 12,620 cases. Kaya payo naman ng Department of Health, kahit walang naging upward trend sa kaso ng mga flu-like illness ngayong buwan, mas mainam na maging maingat kaysa magkasakit.
Ayon kay Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr., posibleng ideklara ang food security emergency para sa bigas sa susunod na linggo, February 4, 2025. Ayon kay Laurel, makikipagkita sila sa National Food Authority o NFA, Food Terminal Incorporated at Kadiwa para sa implementasyon ng rice emergency. Sa oras naman na ideklara ang food security emergency, ay gagamitin ang nasa 300,000 tons ng bigas na buffer stocks ng NFA. Mula rito, inaasahan ni Laurel na mapababa nito ang presyo ng bigas sa merkado.
Nakikita ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas o BSP na posibleng pumatak sa pagitan ng 2.5 at 3.3% ang inflation rate ng Pilipinas ngayong buwan ng Enero. Giit po ng Bangko Sentral, may ambag ang pagtaas ng presyo ng produktong petrolyo, pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin at ang epekto ng weather disturbances sa Pilipinas sa kanilang projection. Noong December noong nakaraang taon, sumampa sa 2.9% ang headline inflation ng Pilipinas at nasa 3.2% naman ang average inflation para sa taong 2024. Inaasahan namang ilalabas ng Philippine Statistics Authority ang kanilang opisyal na January 2025 inflation data sa February 5.
Samantala, asahan ang ikalawang sunod na linggong rollback sa oil products. Batay sa oil industry sources, nasa 40 hanggang 70 centavos ang magiging bawas sa presyo sa kada litro ng gasolina. Piso naman o 1.30 hanggang 1.60 ang inaasahang bawas sa presyo sa kada litro ng diesel, habang nasa 85 sentimos hanggang piso ang posibleng bawas sa kada litro ng kerosene o gaas.
Susunod, ating alamin ang sitwasyon sa Washington plane crash mula sa report ni Jeff Sanidad ng Net25 News Washington Bureau.
Congolese President tiniyak na ibabalik sa gobyerno ang kontrol ng bansa.
At ikatlong hostage prisoner swap sinagawa na ng Hamas at ng Israel. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa mga balita sa pagbabalik na Mata ng Agila International.
This
namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, Gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Walang nakaligtas sa salpukan ng eroplano at military helicopter sa Washington, D.C. noong Miyerkules. Patuloy ang investigasyon ukol sa pinakamalalang commercial airline crash sa Estados Unidos sa nakaraang 16 na taon. Mula sa Reagan National Airport sa Washington, Net 25 correspondent Jeff Sanidad para sa balita.
67 katao ang kumpirmadong nasawi matapos magtransisyon ang search and rescue operations sa recovery efforts. Ito ay isang araw matapos magsalpukan sa ere ang isang American Airlines regional passenger jet at isang US Army Black Hawk helicopter. Kapwa bumagsak ang mga ito sa napakalamig na Potomac River malapit sa Reagan, Washington National Airport noong Miyerkules ng gabi dito sa DC. Kasama sa lulan ng eroplano ang isang grupo ng figure skaters, kani-kanilang coaches at pamilya na lumipad patungong DC mula sa isang camp sa Wichita. Kinumpirma na ni Pangulong Donald Trump na walang naisalba sa 64 na taong lulan ng eroplano at sa taong lulan naman ng military helicopter.
The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly, and we are a country of we are in mourning. This is really shaken a lot of people, including people very sadly from other nations who were on the flight.
Ayon kay Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, ilang bahagi ng kung ano pang natira sa dalawang aircrafts ay nadiskubre na. Kasama dito ang fuselage ng commercial flight. Ani Duff, kapwa aircrafts ay sumunod naman sa standard flight patterns bago ang salpukan.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American airline flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA.
Sinabi naman ni Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth na ang Black Hawk ay pinalipad ng may sapat na kaalamang crew na may suot pang night vision goggles. Subalit ayon kay Hegseth, inilagay sa 48 oras na operational pause ang Army unit na sangkot sa salpukan habang sinusuri pa ang insidente. Ayon sa Pentagon, ang pagpapalipad sa helicopter ay bahagi ng isang training exercise mula sa Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Sa kasalukuyan, patuloy pa rin ang recovery efforts. Subalit, panandalian nitong inihinto nang lumubog ang araw. Itutuloy ulit ang paghahanap sa labi ng mga biktima Biyernes ng umaga. May 40 katawan na ang naiahon mula sa napakalamig na tubig ng Potomac River. Naiahon na rin ang mga maleta at iba pang gamit ng mga pasahero. Kasama sa emergency response teams ay ang Washington DC Fire at EMS, DC Police at iba pa. Marami pang mga katanungan ang kailangang masagot, kabilang ang kung paanong ang isang military aircraft na may surveillance capability ay sumalpok sa isang passenger jet sa gitna ng marahil ay pinakasinusubaybayang airspace sa bansa. Ang crash site ay 5 kilometro lamang ang layo mula sa White House. Sa pagpapatuloy muli ng flights mula at papasok ng Reagan National Airport, Huwebes ng katanghalian, samot-saring emosyon mayroon ang mga pasahero.
I wouldn't be lying if I was a little nervous to fly today and come back on Sunday, but you have to have faith that the airport and the pilots will have your safety at best and wouldn't let you fly. But it's still a sad day today, especially in DC.
It's been 18, 20 years since there's been an accident around here. It's always busy. So for the most part, I think they have it well under control. I'm not sure what the situation was last night, but hopefully they find out what it is and correct it. Yeah. But no, I don't have any pause.
You don't know the flight crew, you don't know the pilots, you never know what could happen. It could happen driving down the road. Anything can happen anytime. So I don't think it's necessarily, worry. There's no point to worry about it and freak out and be like, oh my goodness. Because these things, they happen, as horrible as they are.
Ang salpukan sa ere noong Miyerkules ng gabi ay ang pinakamalala sa bansa sa loob ng halos 16 na taon. Ang huli ay nangyari noong Pebrero 2009 nang sumalpok sa isang bahay sa New York ang isang Continental Airlines flight mula sa New Jersey. 49 na katao ang namatay sa trahedyang iyon. Jeff Sanidad, Washington DC para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Samantala po, nangangamba mga otoridad sa US na walang nakaligtas at patay na nga po lahat ng 67 katao ng mabangga na US Army UH-60 Black Hawk, ang CRJ-700 American Airlines Flight 5342. Patuloy pa ring hinahanap ng Federal Aviation Administration ang cockpit voice recorder, flight data recorder o kilala bilang black boxes ng nasabing eroplano at helicopter. Hinahalughog pa kasi ng mga otoridad ng Potomac River para mahanap ang mga nasabing flight recorders at masimulan ng National Transportation Safety Board ang kanilang investigasyon. Dahil na rin sa insidente ay kinansela ng American Airlines ang 2 flights nito sa Wichita, Kansas at Washington, D.C. Magugulitang nabangga ng Bombardier CRJ-700 regional jet ang U.S. military helicopter habang ito ay papalapit sa runway 33. Mayroong 60 katao ang sakay ng eroplano habang 3 sundalo naman ang lulan ng helicopter.
Ipinahayag ng Mexico na susulat ang gobyerno nito sa Google matapos sabihin ng internet giant na papalitan nito ang pangalan ng Gulf of Mexico para sa users ng Google Maps sa Estados Unidos. Alamin natin ang reaksyon ni Pangulong Claudia Sheinbaum mula kay Anjo Milano.
Noong Biyernes, sinabi ng Estados Unidos na opisyal nitong binago ang pangalan ng Gulf of Mexico at ginawang Gulf of America. At noong Lunes, sinabi ng Google na kapag ang opisyal na mga pangalan ay magkaiba sa mga bansa, ang makikita ng users ng Google Maps ay ang opisyal na pangalang lokal. Bilang tugon, sinabi ni Pangulong Claudia Sheinbaum ng Mexico na ang pagbabago ng mga pangalan ng international waterways ay kinakailangang aprobado ng international organizations, hindi ng individual na mga bansa.
Para poder cambiar un nombre de un mar internacional, pues no es un país quien lo cambia, es una organización internacional. Entonces, estamos enviando esta carta a Google, la vamos a enviar hoy, y mañana, si les parece, explicamos cómo se define esto, ¿no? Porque no puede ser nada más a definición de un país.
Ayon kay Scheinbaum, susulat ang kanyang pamahalaan sa Google ukol dito at hihilingin din itong lumabas sa mapa ang Mexican America.
Por cierto, también le vamos a pedir que América Mexicana aparezca. Que cuando uno ponga América Mexicana, aparezca el mapa de la América Mexicana.
Dagdag dito, sinabi rin ng Mexican President na hindi siya naniniwalang ipapatupad ng US ang bantang taripa nito sa 1 ng Pebrero.
No creemos que vaya a ocurrir. Como les digo, hay conversaciones, hay diálogo. Entonces no creemos que vaya a venir esta definición de los aranceles, pero también ya estamos preparados.
Pagkatapos manumpa ni Trump noong 1 linggo, nagsabi agad ito na ang dagdag taripa na 25% ang ipapatupad sa Pebrero 1 sa mga angkat na produkto mula Mexico at Canada. Ito ay kung hindi aaksyon ang dalawang bansa ayon sa pagpapatigil ng daloy ng iligal na migrante papasok ng US. Anjo Milano para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ayon sa kapulisan ng isang lungsod sa Estados Unidos, kumakalat po ngayon ang takot at pangamba sa immigrant communities dahil sa pagsupil ng Administrasyong Trump sa mga undocumented migrants. Narito ang detalye ng report na yan mula kay Anjay Guzman.
Sa Chicago, Illinois, sinasabi ng mga leader ng gobyerno na may 100 katao ang inaresto sa lungsod kaugnay ng Federal Immigration Action noong linggo. Ayon sa mga pulis, nagdudulot ng tunay na pangamba sa mga komunidad ng mga migrante ang crackdown na ito ni Pangulong Donald Trump. Ayon kay Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling, bilang mga tagapagpatupad ng batas, tungkulin nilang pakalmahin ang takot ng mga mamamayan.
We're hearing that children aren't going to school, people aren't going to work. There's a level of fear out there that we have to bring down, and as authorities, we have a responsibility to be that calming voice.
Nang manumpa si Trump noong 20 ng Enero, nagpadala ito agad-agad ng US troops sa border at binigyang kapangyarihan ang immigration agents na manghuli ng mga undocumented migrants pati na ang hindi naman mga kriminal. Noong 1 linggo, binigyan ng administrations ng karapatan ang kapulisan ng iba't ibang Justice Department agencies na magpatupad din ng immigration enforcement upang tumulong sa crackdown. Ayon kay Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, maaaring magpasa ng batas upang legal na maipatupad at hindi ang magtanim ng takot sa mga tao.
Well, there's a federal law that clearly states if you are undocumented and you are convicted of a crime, you are subject to deportation. That's the law. I fully expect the federal government to uphold that law. Being a welcoming city just simply states that our local police department will not behave as federal agents. There's a clear separation of powers there. You know, look, every administration, by the way, has deported individuals from our country. Every administration. I think he is showing a real odd way of being attracted to our city. If he loves our city, he should just figure out how to work with folks. And I think the last thing that I'll say is, if he was really serious about transforming our immigration system in this country, he would pass a law. There's a bipartisan law right now on the Senate side that would provide more border support, more judges to move asylum cases faster, to create pathways to citizenship. He's not doing that because he wants to stoke fear into people so that he can ultimately behave as the supreme existence, which is quite dangerous because when you have a leader that believes that they are supreme and above the law, there's some real nasty history that demonstrates how damning that can be for the people on the planet.
NJ De Guzman para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Patuloy na pinaiigting ang immigration crackdown ng Trump administration sa Estados Unidos. Kabilang sa mga aksyon ni Pangulong Donald Trump ay ang paghihigpit ng seguridad sa mga borders nito. Narito ang balita mula kay Chantel Santos.
Nagsagawa ng magkasamang security training exercises ang Texas National Guard's Tactical Border Force, Texas Department of Public Safety at ang U.S. Border Patrol noong Martes ng hapon sa may U.S.-Mexico border. Kabilang sa operasyon ang pagdideploy ng 400 Tactical Border Force troops San Salvador Park sa Mission, Texas. Binida nito ang coordinated security measures sa pagitan ng state at federal agencies.
Today's event here at the Ansalduas Park showcased our close working relationships through the Department of Defense, our state, and our federal partners. It also shows our forces that arrived at our border yesterday, the 400 soldiers that are part of the Texas Tactical Border Force. We're excited to work alongside them. We're excited to have the extra boots on the ground. They will serve in security roles, like I mentioned earlier, across all of our 9 stations that are a part of the Rio Grande Valley sector.
Tampok sa ehersisyo ang Chinook helicopters at iba pang sasakyang panghimpapawid. Binigyan din ng training demonstration ang pinalakas sa presensya ng militar sa rehiyon matapos makabalik sa pwesto si Pangulong Donald Trump.
First off, our main priority is always ensuring that our communities are safe, which is why we work in close collaboration with our partners. Another thing being that Title 8 sanctions are in effect, which means anybody who is illegally crossing into the United States will be apprehended, detained, and removed.
Sa unang araw ng kanyang pagkapangulo, idineklara ni Trump na national emergency ang undocumented immigration. Inutusan nito agad-agad ang militar na tumulong sa border security. Nag-issue si Trump ng malawakang ban sa asylum. Gumawa rin ito ng paunang hakbang upang itanggi ang citizenship sa mga sanggol na ipinanganak sa Amerika kung ang mga magulang nito ay undocumented. Santos para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Tiniyak naman ni Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi na kanilang ibabalik ang pagkontrol ng gobyerno.
Une riposte contre ces terroristes et leurs parrains est en cours. Nos vaillantes forces armées de la République démocratique du Congo, symboles de courage et de patriotisme, sont pleinement mobilisées, prêtes à défendre chaque centimètre de notre territoire. J'ai personnellement convoqué et présidé des réunions de crise avec une équipe restreinte du gouvernement, le haut commandement militaire ainsi qu'une réunion interinstitutionnelle afin d'évaluer les récents développements de la situation et de lever les options pour repousser les agresseurs et reconquérir chaque parcelle de notre territoire.
Ito ay matapos na makontrol ng Rwanda-backed M23 rebels ang Goma City at patuloy ang kanilang pag-abanse. Sinabi nitong patuloy ang kanilang ginagawang hakbang upang labanan ang tinawag niyang teroristang grupo.
Forces de défense du Rwanda, en soutien de leurs marionnettes du M23, poursuivent leur entreprise terroriste sur notre territoire, semant la terreur et la désolation parmi nos populations. Je partage avec vous la douleur et l'indignation face à ces attaques barbares. Ces actes ne sont pas seulement une attaque contre la République, mais une offense à l'histoire et à la dignité de notre peuple. En ces moments difficiles, je vous appelle à la résilience et surtout à la résistance.
Binatikos din ito ang international community dahil sa kawalan ng aksyon at hindi gumagawa ng anumang hakbang noong hindi pa matindi ang security crisis. Hinikayat niya ang mga mamamayan na magsanib puwersa at suportahan ang sundalo nila para mabawi at makontrol ang mga teritoryo. Magugunita pong aabot sa 500,000 na mga residente ng Congo ang lumikas mula sa kanilang mga bahay dahil sa lumalalang kaguluhan.
Nous avons engagé d'importantes démarches diplomatiques, notamment au sein du Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies, ainsi que dans le cadre du processus de paix de Luanda, auquel nous restons pleinement engagés malgré les obstacles. Nous privilégions la voie du dialogue, mais toujours avec lucidité, tout en restant fermement résolus à défendre notre territoire et notre souveraineté par tous les moyens nécessaires.
Naghahanda ang libo-libong mga residente sa Congo kabilang ang mga dating sundalo at kabataan para sa isang counter-offensive. Mayla Simbulan para sa karagdagang mga detalye.
Nasa 80 kilometro na lamang ang layo mula sa Bukavu ang mga rebeldeng M23. Kung kaya't libo-libong katao na handang lumaban ang nagparehistro noong Huwebes sakaling kailanganin sila sa posibleng counter-offensive upang proteksyonan ng Congo. Ang rally ay inorganisa ng Provincial Minister of the Interior and Security na isang dating opisyal ng militar. Ito ay dahil sa pagtindi ng tensyon sa Bukavu matapos mahulog sa kamay ng mga rebelde ang bayan ng Goma noong Lunes.
Hatutalia, hatuna wakati ya kulia, wameua ndugu zetu, wameua mama zetu. Tumesema kulipisha kisasi, wametumikisha bunduki, tutatumikisha bunduki. Kama wametumikisha mipanga, hiyo Mungu atatuhurumia, tutawalipa kwa mipanga. Ni kusema a partir ya kesho tuna wale ambao wameandikiwa ni wengi. Haiko kujitapa, uliona echantio iko humu ndani. Hakuna malipana hata sanfra. Watu wote pekee walijialika. Hakuna mwenye balialika humu. Ni kusema hatutasema yote ambayo tunajua hapa.
Sinasabing walang gaanong paglabang kinakaharap ang M23 na pinaniniwala ang suportado ng puwersang Rwanda. Dahil dito kumakalat ang takot sa mga kalapit bayan. Sa Bukavu kung saan determinado ang mga dumalo na makipaglaban, ramdam man ang tensyon. Marami ang nagpahayag ng kabuuan ng loob na sumali sa labanan para sa bayan.
Vous savez, ça fait 30 ans qu'on est victime de la guerre et qu'on n'agit pas. Et aujourd'hui, la jeunesse est debout pour être en première ligne. On va se mobiliser dans la non-violence. S'il faut des armes, on va le faire pour mettre fin à ce qui se passe. Je suis sûr et certain qu'avec la mobilisation nationale et internationale, on va mettre fin à cette guerre. J'appelle tous les jeunes Congolais de partout de se lever comme un seul homme et de dire stop à cette agression et de refuser encore une fois que le sang des Congolais puisse couler dans une situation où on peut mettre fin.
Nous allons utiliser tous les moyens possibles à notre position, à notre disposition, toutes les ressources capables que nous destinons, que nous avons, que nous possédons pour mettre fin à cette guerre. Elle sera longue, mais nous la gagnerons toujours. Qu'il pleuve ou qu'il neige, je pense que l'ennemi, les Rwandais et ses alliés, seront trop petits dans leurs gros souliers parce que nous commençons maintenant, dès maintenant là, nous commençons la mobilisation et nous demandons à toute la population congolaise, à tous les jeunes citoyens qui nous suivent maintenant, qui sont en Europe et pourquoi pas en Amérique, de rejoindre cette mobilisation.
Nangako ang Provincial Minister ng Bukavu ng pagganti at matatag na depensa sa bayan. Nananawagan ang mga taga-Bukavu ng mabilis sa pagtugon mula sa pamahalaan upang pigilan ang pag-abanse ng mga rebelde. Pinapamanagot din ng international community ang Rwanda sa aligasyong suportado nito ang M23. Tumitindi rin ang mga pag-aalala ukol sa humanitarian crisis dahil sa pagpigil sa daloy ng tulong sa mga lugar na kontrolado na ng mga rebelde. Mayla Simbulan para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Itinuloy na rin ng Israel ang pagpapakawala ng 110 mga Palestinian prisoners bilang bahagi pa rin ng ceasefire at hostage deal sa Hamas. Ang lahat ng mga pinakawalang preso ay inilipat sa isang detention facilities ng Israel, partikular na sa Ofer at Ketzoit Prison. Kapalit nila ang 8 bihag na unang pinakawala ng Hamas nitong Huwebes. Kabilang sa pinakawala ng Israel ay si Zakaria al-Zubaydi na isang high-profile Palestinian prisoner. Siya ang namuno sa kaguluhan sa Palestine noong year 2000 kung saan commander ito ng Jenin branch ng Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, ang militant wings ng Palestinian political party na Fatah. Una rito ay sumiklab ang kaguluhan matapos na maantala ng ilang araw o ng isang araw ang naging pangako ng Israel na pagpapakawala ng mga Palestinian prisoners. Gumamit ng mga rubber bullets ang otoridad sa Palestine dahil sa kilos protesta sa bahagi ng West Bank.
Sa kabila naman ng ipinataw na ban ng Israel sa United Nations Palestinian Relief Agency o UNRWA, patuloy pa rin ang operasyon nito sa Jerusalem. Rosel Feria po para sa balitang yan.
Hindi pa rin nagpapapigil sa operasyon nito ang UN Palestinian Relief Agency na UNRWA. Ito ay sa kabila ng pagpapatupad ng ban ng Israel sa ahensya na magpatuloy sa gawain nito sa katimugang bahagi ng kabisera ng bansa ang Jerusalem. Ayon sa tagapagsalita ng UN na si Stefan Dujarric, dire-diretso ang serbisyo at pamamahagi ng tulong ng UNRWA hindi lamang sa Jerusalem, kundi pati na rin sa Gaza Strip at West Bank. Samantala, nagbabala si UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini ng malasako ng epekto ng ban ng Israel na nagsimula na noong Huwebes. Anya, ang pagpapasarang ito sa ahensya ay tunay na makapipinsala sa buhay at kinabukasan ng Palestinians.
Agency is critical for supporting a shattered population under ceasefire. And yet, in 2 days, our operation in the occupied Palestinian territory will be crippled as legislation passed by the Israeli Knesset takes effect. The relentless assault on UNRWA is harming the lives and future of Palestinians across the occupied Palestinian territory. It is eroding the trust in the international community, jeopardizing prospect for peace and security.
Ang UNRWA ang ahensyang nagbibigay ng tulong pangkalusugan, edukasyon at emergency services sa milyong-milyong mga Palestinians. Inaakusahan ito ng Israel ng kaugnayan sa Hamas. Pinabulaanan ng UNRWA ang mga aligasyong ito at sinabing walang ebidensyang ibinibigay ang Israel ukol sa mga akusasyon. Rosel Feria para sa Mata ng Agila International, Trusted, Connected, On Point.
Muling nanawagan si United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres ng agarang pagpapalikas sa mahigit 2,500 mga kabataan mula sa Gaza. Ayon kay Guterres, ang mga ito ay kailangang isailalim sa medical treatment. Ginawa na opisyal ang pahayag matapos ang naging pakikipagpulong sa mga US doctors. Nabatid na ang naturang bilang ng mga bata ay maaaring maharap sa kamatayan sa mga susunod pang linggo. Nag-aalala ang mga doktor sa kalagayang pangkalusugan ng mga bata sa Gaza dahil sa patuloy na giyera sa pagitan ng Israel at Palestinian Hamas militants. Ang higit sa 1 taong sagupaan sa pagitan ng dalawang bansa ay nakaapekto sa mahigit na 2 milyong katao at kanilang sistema ng healthcare. Batay sa datos ng World Health Organization o WHO, aabot sa 12,000 mga pasyente ang patuloy na naghihintay ng medical evacuations.
UNRWA told us today, and we've been speaking to them by phone a number of times this morning, that they are continuing to deliver assistance and services to the communities they're serving. UNRWA clinics across the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are open. Meanwhile, the humanitarian operations in Gaza continues, including with UNRWA work there. UNRWA says it is committed to staying and delivering.
Naglunsad ang World Health Organization o WHO ng agaran at malawakang aksyon upang suportahan ang health officials para sa mabilis na pagpigil sa Sudan virus disease outbreak sa Uganda.
Postmortem samples confirmed Sudan Ebola virus, and want to thank the teams that worked overnight to make sure that we got these results in time and were able to start immediately the work.
Mabilis na nagpadala ang WHO ng mga public health senior experts at idineploy ang mga ito sa mga apektado ng outbreak. Naglaan ang organisasyon ng $1 million mula sa Contingency Fund for Emergencies upang mapabilis ang maagang pagtugon at tagahanda ng mahahalagang supply ng medikal, kabilang na ang personal na protective equipment para ipamahagi naman mula sa Emergency Response Hub sa Nairobi. Kahit na walang lisensyadong bakuna para sa Sudan virus disease, ang WHO ay aktibo pong nakikipag-ugnayan na sa mga developers upang mabilis na ipadala ang mga pinag-aaralang vaccines kapag nakuha na ang lahat ng kinakailang approvals. Sa kasalukuyan, isang kumpirmadong kaso na isang nurse mula sa Alagao National Referral Hospital sa Kampala ang naiulat. Wala namang iba pang mga health workers o pasyente ang nagpakita ng sintomas ng nasabing sakit. Ang kabuuan na 45 contacts, kabilang na ang mga health workers at miyembro ng pamilya ng kumpirmadong kaso ang na-identify at kasulukuyang mahigpit na minomonitor. Sa kasaysayan, nagkaroon na ng 8 outbreak ng Sudan virus disease, 5 sa Uganda at 3 sa Sudan. Huling naiulat ng Uganda ang outbreak noong taong 2022. Ang Sudan virus disease ay isang malubha, kadalasang nakamamatay na sakit na nakakaapekto sa tao at iba pang primates na dulot ng Ebola virus sudanense mula sa parehong genus na virus na nagdudulot naman ng Ebola disease. Ang case fatality rates para sa Sudan virus disease ay nag-iiba mula 41% up to 100% sa mga nakaraang outbreak. Susunod, isang batang babae tumilapon sa ere matapos sumabog ang isang sewage pipe sa China.
OpenAI inakusahan ng DeepSeek dahil sa paggamit nito ng ChatGPT bilang training tool.
At EJ Obiena muling nag-uwi na medalya sa isang indoor tournament sa Germany. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa sa pagbabalik pa rin ng Mata ng Agila International.
Ngayong Sabado sa Motorcycle Republic.
Track Day ng Motorcycle Republic in collaboration with Motocap.
Paano ba ang safety? First, you have to have the right gears, the right knowledge, and that's the reason why we're also here as coaches to advocate safety.
Kung hindi pa susubukan mag-track, ride nyo lang talaga. Yung si Motocamp nandyan yan, tuturuan kayo. Gusto nyo sumama mag-ride kay Motorcycle Republic. Yun lang, sobrang saya.
This is Motorcycle Republic. Tuwing Sabado, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Let's get together.
First, insightful discussions. People who don't know how to use technology within a few years from now will be replaced. Either people who use technology or by technology itself.
Pinapayagan na namin yung hybrid or basta output-based. Depende kasi sa position yon.
The rule of business is innovate or die.
So we would like to focus on increasing the competency of our members and creating a stronger partnership with the Quezon City government.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Sunday 25.
Isang batang babae po ang dinala sa pagamutan matapos itong tumilapon nang sumabog ang isang kanal sa Chongqing, China. Ayon sa local authorities, naganap ang insidente noong January 27 sa Longshui Town. Mula naman sa nakalap na CCTV footage, mapapansing inilagay ng bata ang pinaniniwalaang paputok sa itaas ng cover ng isang manhole. Bago makaalis ang bata sa may manhole ay biglaan na lamang sumabog ang ilalim nito at tumilapon na nga ang batang babae sa ere. Kinumpirma ng mga otoridad na dahil sa paputok, kaya naman nagkaroon ng pagsabog sa loob ng manhole. Tuloy-tuloy naman ang medical treatment na natatanggap ng biktima at kasalukuyan itong nasa stable na kondisyon.
Samantala, nilamon ng malaking apoy ang isang pabrika sa Bangkok, Thailand ngayong araw ng Biyernes. Ayon sa ulat ng mga bumbero, gumuhuri ng 5 palapag na gusali sa gitna ng kanilang operasyon. Sumiklab ang apoy bandang alas 5 ng umaga at mabilis na kumalat ito sa buong pabrika na pagmamay-ari ng kumpanyang Carry Boy. Pinaniniwala ang nagsimula ang apoy sa 2 palapag ng pabrika kung saan nakatago ang mga paint thinner. Batay sa investigasyon ng mga pulis, nagsimula ang sunog sa isang battery explosion sa loob ng gusali. Agad namang naapula ng mga bumbero ang apoy sa lugar at wala namang napaulat na nasaktan o nasawi sa trahedya.
Limang skiers po ang namatay sa 2 magkahiwalay na avalanche sa French Alps, ayon po yan sa local officials. Ayon nga sa lokal na ulat, ang unang avalanche ay naganap sa Valsenis sa timog silangan ng Savoie region, kung saan kumitil ito ng 4 na buhay. Ang pangalawa namang insidente ay naganap sa hilaga ng Haute-Savoie region malapit sa Chamonix na ikinamatay ng isang Swiss skier. Kinumpirma ng mga otoridad na may nakaligtas na 3 skiers mula sa mga tinamaan ng avalanche.
Patindi ng patindi ang init sa mga favela ng Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Ano kaya ang ginagawa ng mga health workers doon upang maproteksyonan ng vulnerable population? Narito ang report ni Ana Cui.
Sinasabing nakamamatay ang matinding init lalo na sa mga mahihina ang resistensya. At sa mga favela ng Brazil o mga komunidad na lapis ang kahirapan dahil sa kasikipan ng mga tirahan at laki ng populasyon, nanganganib ang mga residente sa epekto ng matinding init ng panahon. Kung kaya't nagmamabilis ang mga doktor at nurses upang maagapan ang pagkakasakit o pagkamatay ng mga taga roon, lalong-lalo na ang mahihina ang katawan. Bumibisita ang mga nurse sa mahihirap na kapitbahayan mula sa munisipalidad ng Rio upang magbigay ng pangunahing panggagamot sa mga populasyong delikado tulad ng matatanda, bata, buntis at iba pang may karamdaman. Sinusuyod ng healthcare teams ang makikipot ng mga eskinita, pati na ang mga nasa gilid ng riles ng tren upang marating ang mga pasyente. Dumaraan kasi ngayon ang lungsod sa heat level 2 matapos umabot sa 40 degrees Celsius ang temperatura sa kabisera. Mas pinasasama ang kalagayan sa favelang init dahil marami sa mga residente ay walang access sa tubig at kuryente.
O que a gente percebe com os pacientes nesse calor é que a gente está num território onde as casas são um pouquinho mais próximas, né, mais estreitas, e nem todas têm ar-condicionado. Então, sempre quando a gente vem fazer a visita domiciliar, que é esse atendimento que a gente faz na própria casa da pessoa, sempre tem algum ventilador ligado para poder manter esse ambiente um pouco mais arejado.
Para sa mga residente, grabe ang init at hindi nila malaman kung ano pa ang gagawin upang maibsan ito.
Tá muito difícil esse calor, não sei como vai ser meu parto. Olha, tá demais.
Aqui a gente passa muito calor, às vezes falta água. Aí a gente se diverte assim, né? Porta de casa, e somos pobres, né? Não temos muito dinheiro pra...
Ana Cui para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Inakusahan naman ng US firm na OpenAI ang kumpanyang DeepSeek ng China na ginagamit nito ang ChatGPT para i-train ang kanilang artificial intelligence o AI tools. Ayon sa OpenAI, mayroon silang nakalap na ebidensyang nagpapatunay na ginawa nga ng DeepSeek ang paratang sa kanila. Anila, malaking halaga ang natipid ng DeepSeek para makalikha ng AI model para pantapat naman sa OpenAI. Iniulat naman ng Bloomberg na iniimbestigahan na ng Microsoft kung ang data na galing sa OpenAI ay nakompromiso nga. Sa kasalukuyan, kapwang walang komento ang Microsoft at DeepSeek hinggil sa nasabing issue.
Nag-deploy ang SpaceX na isang Spanish satellite sa kalawakan. Sinabi ng Spanish space sector na fully operational ang satellite na SpainSat Next Generation 1. Isa nila itong advanced secure communication satellite na kayang i-cover ang area ng United States, South America hanggang Singapore, pati na rin ang Africa, Europe at Middle East. Kabilang sa nasawi ang 16 anyos na skater, kanilang ina at 2 Russian coaches sa mga pasaherong nakasakay sa eroplanong bumagsak malapit sa ilog sa Washington, D.C. Kinilala ang mga skaters na sina Spencer Lane at Gina Han kasama ang mga ina nila na sina Christine Lane at Jin Han. Maging ang 2 dating world champion skaters at coaches ng dalawa na sina Yevgenia Shinskova at Vadim Naumov ay kasamang nasawi sa eroplano. Dumalo ang mga ito sa U.S. Figure Skating Championships and National Development Camp sa Wichita, Kansas. Magugunitang nagkabanggaan ng pampasaherong eroplano at isang U.S. Army helicopter kung saan parehas itong bumagsak sa Nagyelong Potomac River. Una nang kinumpirma ng mga otoridad na wala silang nakitang nakaligtas sa insidente at nagpapatuloy ang ginagawang investigasyon ukol sa insidente.
Nagwagi naman po ng silver medal si Pinoy pole vault star EJ Obiena sa International Jump Meeting Cottbus 2025 na ginanap sa Germany. Ito ang unang indoor game ni Obiena matapos ang ilang buwang pamamahinga dahil sa injury sa likod matapos ang Paris Olympics. Nagtapos ng 5.65 meters clearance ang Asian at Southeast Asian Games champion, kaya naman nakamit ito ang pangalawang pwesto. Nanguna naman sa torneo si Sam Kendrick ng US na nakakuha ng 5.75 meters. Sinubukan ni Obiena na maabot ang 5.75 meters para makamit ang ginto medalya, subalit bigo ito sa 3 attempts. Itinuturing na isa itong magandang simula para kay Obiena na umaasang makamit ang number 2 world ranking. Kasalukuyan ay nasa pang-4 na pwesto si EJ sa ngayon.
Sa ibang balita naman, iwas stress muna tayo ngayon dahil nag-aalok ang isang cafe sa Los Angeles ng libreng cat cuddles para sa mga biktima ng wildfires. Ayon sa management ng Crumbs and Whiskers, binibigyan nila ng 15-minute session ang mga bisita para makipaglaro sa mga cute na mga pusa. Anila ang mga pusang ito ay nasagip nila mula sa mga high-kill shelters at ngayon ay nakatutulong para ma-relieve ang stress.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have some very sweet kitties in here, and it can just be a really peaceful and de-stressing experience to come hang out with the kitties. It's also just a great way to get people's minds off of what's going on at the moment in LA, and it's a great way to help socialize our kitties, so we really appreciate people who come in and hang out with them.
At ngayon nga pong taong 2025 ay itinampok ng organizers ng Spring Gala event sa China ang pinagsama nitong kultura at teknolohiya. Gamit nila ang tinatawag na 3D ropeway system para i-shoot ang mga eksena para sa fireworks display para sa Spring Gala event. Layo ng mga organizers na ipakita ang cutting-edge equipment nito para itanghalang Chinese culture sa pagdiriwang ng nasabing aktibidad. Anila nakatulong ang mga teknolohiya sa paglikha ng visual effects sa gitna pa rin ng mga ethnic culture and folk arts sa Xinjiang. Higit pa rito ay nagamit din ang mga ito sa malikhaing sing and dance performance upang ipakita ang cultural heritage ng China.
Diba? Alam mo, lagi ako na-amaze sa mga ganyang spectacles. Tsaka yun na nga, hindi masyadong nakaka-contribute sa pollution sa ere. Hindi katulad ng mga nakagisna natin ng mga traditional na fireworks. Diba? Ito, ang ganda visually, pero syempre low impact sa environment.
Tsaka pansin mo, Nina, diba? Actually, may balita nga na talagang mas nabawasan din talaga yung mga nagpapaputo kahit sabihin natin ng bagong taon. Kumbaga, naka-concentrate na sa ibang lugar para naman ma-enjoy pa rin natin yung mga fireworks display. Ayan. So, iba talaga environments. Naku, tsaka kalain mo, Nina.
Dahil
meron ka
dyan,
ba ang joke ngayon?
Hindi, may knock-knock lang ako sa'yo.
Sige.
Dahil dito sa mga damit natin.
Ay, ano ba? Nagkataon naman na talagang ang tayo pa.
Ayan, Rikki. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Satin.
Ay! Satin who?
Happy weekend! Satin! O, diba? Pwede na din.
In fairness,
kasi Friday
ngayon mo lang talaga naisip
Oo,
yan,
medyo last minute yan. Pero it works naman. Or at least I believe so.
I'm sure tumatawa ngayon ang isa sa talagang masugid natin manonood, Nina.
At yan ay walang iba.
Ay, totoo, walang iba, kundi ang aking favorite Popsi, dahil nag-isa ko siyang tatay. Siyempre, happy birthday, Nikwek! Ayan,
happy birthday
magkikita tayo.
po! Nako, masugid na taga-subaybay. Talaga yan, walang
nagko-comment pa sa mga posts mo, di ba? Napakaganda.
Tsaka all positive ones.
Yes,
That's what I
dapat
love
talaga
about you, Happy
positive
birthday.
tayo sa anumang problema pinagdaraanan natin. Ngayong weekend, akalain mo, Nina, weekend na, di ba?
ganda.
Ngayong weekend po, let's take this opportunity to spend it with our loved ones, and we should have like a memorable and happy weekend. At magka-break naman tayo. Pero huwag kayong mag-alala, ha? Dahil sa Lunes, narito po ulit kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita sa amang dako na mundo. Happy weekend, everybody! Ako po muli si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Nina Rikki Alagao Flores na bumabati rin po na isang masayang weekend po sa inyong lahat. Ito pa rin ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nanggaling din sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Rikki. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for Net 25 World News. On tonight's headlines.
67 people are dead after search and rescue operations unfortunately have to transition to recovery efforts.
The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller. They're not people that should be doing this particular job. They'd be very good for certain jobs, but not people that should be doing this particular job.
And the news starts now.
Sixty-seven people are dead after search and rescue operations unfortunately have to transition to recovery efforts. This a day after an American Airlines regional passenger jet collided mid-air with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and crashed into the frigid Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport on Wednesday evening here in D.C. On the flight are a number of figure skaters, their coaches, and family members flying into D.C. from a camp in Wichita. President Donald Trump confirmed this afternoon that there are no survivors from the 64 people on board the American Airlines plane and from the 3 soldiers aboard the U.S. military helicopter.
The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly, and we are a country of, really, we are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said part of what's left of the 2 aircrafts have been discovered. These include the fuselage of the commercial flight. Duff says both aircrafts were adhering to standard flight patterns before the collision.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American airline flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that the Black Hawk was operated by a fairly experienced crew wearing night vision goggles. Hegseth says However, that the Army unit involved in the collision is placed on a 48-hour operational pause while the incident is reviewed. The Pentagon says that the helicopter was flying as a training exercise out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Recovery efforts are still ongoing. They, however, have paused at sundown today and will resume in the morning. Some 40 bodies have already been pulled out from the freezing waters of the Potomac River. Luggages and other belongings of the passengers have also been retrieved. Emergency response teams include Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS, D.C. Police, and others. More questions have yet to be answered, including how a military aircraft equipped with surveillance capabilities collided with a passenger jet in what is considered one of the most monitored airspace in the country. The crash site is just 5 kilometers away from the White House. As flights to and from the Reagan National Airport resume late Thursday morning, passengers have mixed feelings.
I wouldn't be lying if I was a little nervous to fly today and come back on Sunday, but you have to have faith that the airport and the pilots will have your safety at best and wouldn't let you fly. But I mean, it's still a sad day today, especially in DC.
It's been 18, 20 years since there's been an accident around here. It's always busy. So for the most part, I think they have it well under control. I'm not sure what the situation was last night, but hopefully they find out what it is and correct it. Yeah. But no, I don't have any pause.
You don't know the flight crew, you don't know the pilots, you never know what could happen. It could happen driving down the road. Anything can happen anytime, so I don't think it's necessarily, worry. There's no point to worry about it and freak out and be like, oh my goodness, because these things, they happen, as horrible as they are.
Wednesday evening's collision is the deadliest U.S. commercial air crash in almost 16 years. The last one occurred in February of 2009 when a Continental Airlines flight from New Jersey crashed into a house in New York. 49 people died in the tragedy. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C. for Net 25 World News.
The U.S. Army helicopter that collided with a passenger jet near Washington was on a training flight with a fairly experienced crew using night vision goggles, and that is according to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Following the crash, which left no survivors, the Pentagon has ordered a 48-hour stand-down for the Virginia-based unit involved.
At about 8:48 last night, a UH-60 assigned to the U.S. Army Aviation Brigade in the Military District of Washington, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, collided tragically with a civilian airliner. The unit involved, the Army unit involved, was Bravo Company 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir. It was an annual proficiency training flight. And when we look at the crew, and not all kin have been notified, so we're going to withhold ranks and names at this point. We do know on our side who was involved. It was a fairly experienced crew, and that was doing a required annual night evaluation. They did have night vision goggles.
At a White House press conference, President Trump said the helicopter crew should have seen where they were going.
You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more. He's coming in the path. And for some reason, you had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously when they hit, but pretty much the same height, and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, do you see, he was talking about, do you see him? But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also, he said, follow him in. And then almost immediately after that, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine, follow him in. You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter, because it was visual. It was a very clear night. It was cold but clear, and clear as you could be. You could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. For some reason, it just kept going and then made a slight turn at the very end, and by that time it was too late. They shouldn't have been at the same height, because if it was at the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. Could have been 1,000 feet higher, it could have been 200 feet lower, but it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out.
Hegseth confirmed the Black Hawk was carrying 3 soldiers for an annual night evaluation and said investigators are working to determine if the aircraft was in the correct flight corridor and altitude.
Military aircraft can do training exercises anytime during the day. They can operate in and out of civilian airports as well. In fact, around the country, we even have major airports that are both joint military and civilian. So they can do that. But my overarching question is, and it's hard to know, what was the helicopter pilot thinking? The American Airlines jet was on final approach to runway 33. They're in the landing configuration, which means they have all their lights on, including landing lights. It's a clear night. How can you not see the plane? We also have technology on board our planes, one of which is an instrument called a traffic collision avoidance system, or a TCAS. And what that does, it shows all the planes that are around us within about a 5-mile or 10-mile radius. And it shows how high above us they are, how high or how far below us they are, so that we're aware. So if one gets close to the plane, you'll hear the TCAS, traffic, right?
Was this accident preventable? The answer is probably. I can tell you that the airspace in and around Washington, D.C. is the most restricted, regulated, controlled, complex airspace in the country. There are several layers of security rings around Washington, D.C. ever since 9/11. And that accident happened within a couple miles of Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, which is inside what's called the flight restricted zone. Any aircraft flying in that area is under direct and specific control of air traffic control, including that helicopter and that airliner. So if it's, the answer is yes, it was probably preventable, and that's exactly what the NTSB will uncover in their investigation.
Meanwhile, President Trump suggested that efforts to boost diversity at the FAA could have been a cause in the crash, and harshly criticized Pete Buttigieg, who headed the Transportation Department under President Joe Biden, saying this.
Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster.
And the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They are
or are you
a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm
blaming-
surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming
Please.
You're going to fire some of those diversity hire in the federal government. What's plan do you have?
I would say the answer is yes. If we find that people aren't mentally competent, you see the language. The language is put out by them. And if you see that, I'm not going to bore you by reading it again, but these are not people that should be doing this particular job. They'd be very good for certain jobs, but not people that should be doing this particular job.
How you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash?
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers.
Meanwhile, a high-ranking Filipino police official has been identified as one of the 67 victims in Wednesday's deadly air collision near Washington, D.C. Colonel Pergentino Malabed was on the American Airlines flight that struck a U.S. Army helicopter before plunging into the Potomac River. Malabed, who headed the Philippine National Police's Supply Management Division, was in Washington for official business. He had just completed testing police equipment with colleagues and was planning to visit the Philippine Embassy when the tragic accident occurred. Police officials say Malabed's body has been recovered from the river, and his widow is now traveling to the United States to identify and claim his remains. Myanmar's ruling military has extended a state of emergency for another 6 months, according to state media, a day ahead of the 4-year anniversary of a coup that plunged the country into chaos after a decade of tentative democracy. Myanmar has been locked in a civil war triggered by the military's overthrow of the elected civilian government of Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. The junta plans this year to hold an election, which critics have derided as a sham to keep the generals in power through proxies. There are still more tasks to be done to hold the general election successfully, especially for a free and fair election. Stability and peace is still needed. And that is according to state-run Myanmar Digital News, saying this on its Telegram channel in announcing the extension of emergency rule. 5 Thai hostages released by Hamas arrived at an Israeli hospital. 3 more Thai nationals are being held in Gaza. 2 of them have been declared deceased. More than 250 hostages were abducted in the Hamas attack in Israel, the bloodiest single attack on Jews since the Holocaust.
We had the privilege to receive yesterday the 5 hostages, Thai citizens that came back from captivity after a very, very long time there. Regarding their condition, they seem in a stable condition, and they're undergoing medical, physical, and mental evaluation. We need to remember that although nourishment-wise they are currently in an okay weight, the food that they got was very dull. So it was mainly pitot, a lot of carbs, not much protein, not much vegetables. They were not exposed to light either, not because some of them were underground, but even when they were not underground, they describe rooms which were shaded, So we already can see a decrease in vitamin D, which, as we all know, is something you get when you're exposed to the sun. So they're here treated in a very holistic approach, looking both mentally and physically.
Sweden is taking drastic action to combat crime and prison overcrowding. The government has announced plans to deport convicted criminals to serve their sentences in foreign prisons. A government-appointed commission says Sweden's prisons are struggling to cope as violent gang activity has surged in recent years. Once known for its peace and stability, the Scandinavian country now faces some of the highest homicide rates in Europe, averaging at least one shooting per day in 2022 and 2023. Authorities say police crackdowns on gangs have led to overcrowding in prisons, prompting Sweden to explore deals with other European nations to house inmates abroad. Officials also report that gang members now make up nearly 5% of the population, with many being second or third generation immigrants or individuals facing economic hardship. As part of a broader crackdown, Sweden has tightened restrictions on asylum seekers, who officials claim are often recruited into gangs.
Den nya statistiken för 2024 visar följande.
The new statistics for 2024 show that when we add up refugees and their relatives, Sweden currently has the lowest asylum-related immigration since 1985, as far back as there is data. Overall, fewer and fewer residence permits are granted, while more residence permits or a greater share are granted to foreign experts and talents. The number of asylum seekers has so far decreased by 42% during the term of office, and we are also seeing an increase in returns to countries of origin. The efforts we have implemented have yielded results and will continue to yield results as we also roll out further reforms in the future.
Har gett resultat. De kommer att fortsätta ge resultat i takt med att vi också rullar ut ytterligare reformer framöver.
Sweden's minority government, backed by the right-wing Sweden Democrats, campaigned on reducing both immigration and crime, arguing that the two are linked. Officials say their efforts have led to a historic drop in asylum seekers, but they stress that long-term enforcement is necessary to maintain these results. And this move comes just days after former U.S. President Donald Trump suggested a similar policy, proposing that the U.S. send repeat criminal offenders to third countries for a fee. As Europe's right-wing governments take tougher stances, Sweden is shedding its long-held reputation as a safe haven for asylum seekers. Urgent news coming out of Uganda. Health officials have confirmed an Ebola outbreak in the capital city of Kampala. The first confirmed patient, a male nurse at Mula Lunes National Referral Hospital, sadly passed away on Wednesday, January 29th.
Total of 44 contacts have been listed, and of these, 30 are health workers from Mulago, and 11 are family members of the deceased, while 4 are health workers in Sardina Hospital in Matuga.
But here's the challenge. Kampala is a bustling city of over 4 million people, and it's a major crossroads for travel to countries like South Sudan, Congo, and Rwanda. Now that makes contact tracing a lot tougher, especially with a virus as contagious as Ebola. It spreads through contact with infected bodily fluids and tissues, and symptoms can include headaches, muscle pain, vomiting blood, and bleeding. The good news, Uganda has dealt with Ebola before and has built up strong systems over the years. Things like lab testing, patient care, and contact tracing. They've also managed to control recent outbreaks relatively quickly, and the World Health Organization is stepping in too, releasing $1 million from its emergency fund to help contain this outbreak. And the news continues here on Net 25. We'll be right back.
Yayanig ang ating linggo ngayon dahil makakasama natin Asia's songbird Regine Velasquez. Kapag siya na ang bumirit, jam-pack na ang mga concert hall. Pero hindi palaging kasing taas ng kanyang boses ang naging kwento ng kanyang buhay. Ang dami rin palang flats ng kanyang mga hugot. Higit sa 300 na singing contest ang sinalihan. Bago pa natutong magbasa, nauna muna siyang matutong kumanta. Nilulubog sa dagat ng tatay tuwing magpa-practice sa boses. Ano ang kwento at journey sa likod ng mga hit songs niya? Yan at marami pang iba dito lang sa Corina Interviews ngayong linggo 6 p.m. sa Net25.
Are you looking to make a difference with your purchases? Join us in this special episode as we shine a spotlight on locally produced goods and businesses that make our community thrive. From handcrafted items to locally sourced food, these entrepreneurs pour their passion into what they create. At the same time, savings in life and for life. Dito lang yan sa Ito Ang Tahanan tuwing Sabado at Linggo, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga sa Net25.
Let's get together sa Net25. Sa Net25.
Humans have long wondered, how does the sun shine for so long? Scientists finally answered this in the 1900s. The sun is filled with light elements that fuse to create heavier ones, generating vast amounts of energy. Now, this fusion is inexhaustible, fueling the sun forever. So what if we could tap into this energy? Could we replicate the sun's power here on Earth? This is what scientists are working on with nuclear fusion, creating an artificial sun. China has achieved a major milestone with its tokamak reactor, setting a world record in 2023 by fusing atoms at 100 million degrees Celsius for 1 minute and 66 seconds. That's like 70,000 ovens running for 7 minutes. So why does it matter? Nuclear fusion promises limitless energy, faster rockets, advancements in cancer research, and clean power without greenhouse emissions or radioactive waste. It could be the solution to both our energy crisis and climate change, but it's extremely difficult to achieve. Fusion requires heat, pressure, and stability, a slow and challenging process. Countries like the US, France, and China have been working on fusion for decades, and now private companies are getting involved. Why? Because whoever masters fusion first will gain huge economic and political power. China has been leading the way, investing $1.5 billion a year in fusion, while the US spends half of that.
This project could really put fusion energy to use for humanity. We're really harnessing fusion energy. Future reactors will have to operate based on the duration of 1,000 seconds. This result is a major breakthrough for the East and for the entire magnetic confinement fusion community. It marks a crucial milestone in tokamak's transitioning from fundamental research to engineering applications.
China is moving ahead, and it's dominating the fusion field with more patents and records than anyone else. So who will control the future of energy? Will it be China, or will the world catch up? And finally, in our news, a London cafe is changing lives by giving young adults with learning disabilities a fair shot at employment. With England's employment rate for this group at just 4.8%, Fair Shot is brewing hope. One coffee and one job opportunity at a time. Chanel Pajuelas reports.
From the hiss of steam warming milk, the clank of emptying used coffee grounds, and the chatter of customers, Fair Shot is like any other London coffee shop, but it's also a training centre for young adults with learning disabilities. In England, just 4.8% of people with learning disabilities were in paid work in 2022 to 2023, according to the government's annual survey of adult social care. Bianca Tavella, founder and chief executive of Fair Shot, believes the rate is too low and there's a way to help fix it.
I'm so proud that I got a paid job because in the past I've applied for employment and I've been rejected. And I was told to be patient and everything happens for a reason.
Having grown up with an autistic friend, Tavella, 29, hatched a plan to give those with learning disabilities or neurodevelopment disorders the chance to realize their full potential by providing training, both for them and for employers. Fairshot students may have autism, auditory processing disorder, motor skill difficulties, Down syndrome, or non-diagnosed condition, the CEO said. The program trains 15 people a year to be ready to secure paid jobs.
I think it's amazing that these different social enterprises models are popping up around the UK and the world, both for marginalised women, homeless people, ex-convicts, and people with learning disabilities, because finally it feels like the future is a little bit brighter.
19 employers have signed up to give jobs to the students. There are over 40 steps for a partner company to go through, which can take a year or more, as a Fairshot consultant works to help train frontline staff to be ready for the new edition. Partners include restaurants like The Ivy, coffee shops, plus co-working spaces and big companies like Goldman Sachs. While sales from Fairshot's own coffee shop in central London's Covent Garden help fund some of the training, Tavella raises $550,000 a year to keep the charity running. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Chanel Pajuelas for Net25 World News.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.